Thanks again. Here we are at the Q&A portion. This is a panel featuring our speakers. It's awesome being able to have you guys stick around for the VIP. You guys are like the diehards. I'm glad that we can have you guys still around for this part and how we can wrap up our event. What we'll do is go through each speaker, and they're going to tell what they presented on, just in the in case you didn't get to hear or see their talks today, just so they can give you an idea about what they did talk about. The questions you have are for a certain speaker. You can direct that to them, and I'm sure they'd be glad. Please keep your questions succinct. This, a lot of times people like to share stories. Let's see if we can maybe leave the questions for now, and if you have stories, let's save that for afterward. And we'll start here with Shelly. Shelly, tell us, what did you present on today?
I presented on DNA collections, procedures, and wildlife kills and behaviors.
All right, let's hear for Shelly, Covington-Montana.
My name is Chester Moore, and I presented on various strange animals showing up in our woods. A lot of exotic stuff, mystery cats, mystery canines, and even mystery primates.
I'm Ronnie LeBlanc. I'm just kidding. I'm Mireya, and I presented on my work as a primatologist and National Geographic explorer, and shared some scenes from Expedition Bigfoot. I think that's all I covered. Oh, and my kids.
That's enough.
I'm Mike Mays, and I'm intimidated now. I presented on 2 decades of work with the NAWAC and a book I've written called Valley of the Apes.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Pruitt, and my presentation was about a clip of video from a police cruiser dash cam that was featured in the premiere episode of Finding Bigfoot.
And I'm Daryl Colyer, and I presented that dark, heavy discussion with artificial intelligence about the hypothetical discovery of the Sasquatch.
Daryl Colyer. All right, spectacular lineup. I'm glad you guys could all be here. So, for anyone who has any burning questions, we're going to open it up to the audience for questions and answers. I'll start with you right here.
So, I believe in the existence of these creatures, but why do we not hear about more, like cattle mutilations or horse? They habitate areas around people and farms. Why do they go out chasing deer when they can just go into a corral and get a cow? If they're hungry enough. Why do you think they avoid livestock? That's basically my question.
Who are you asking?
I'll take that.
I will
Go for it. You go first. Go first.
Go for it. Pass it out.
How big do you think a 9-month-old steer is?
Well, what about a cat?
Okay, a cat? Okay,
Pigs, any livestock.
well that's people food, like Matt Moneymaker said. Let's put it this way. If you bake deer, corn, and hogs come around, during the season of acorns, when they drop, they prefer their food over our food. And calves weigh a lot. I'm always perplexed by people think that Sasquatches would do things, and I'm not saying you, I'm just, a 9-month-old weighs over 1,000 pounds. I would think that it would be a hard battle, and especially horses, because you're not getting, they'll bite you, they'll fall on you, they'll scream at you, they will interrupt your life no matter how big you are if you mess with a horse. So that's just, I don't think the perspective of how dangerous domestic cattle and horses really can be towards anything. A mule can kill a cougar, so I would think they just start like, I ain't messing with that.
Oh, I would.
There are some accounts of like pigs,
Yes.
Being taken up.
Right.
I've actually done some investigations on that, but I think for the most part, if these animals obviously are more intelligent than other predators, or probably just be an omnivore that we have out there, they probably link domestic livestock to us too, and that keeps a barrier away from them. Like if I got to go closer to that habitation or the risk factor, even big cats and other animals figure out risk factors and stuff inherently. So I don't know why these animals, but I have definitely heard of pigs. That's like the one thing I've heard
Yeah,
of before,
for sure.
pigs. Anybody else?
When you deeply study the reports that involve predation, where people claim to have watched a Sasquatch prey upon an animal, they're almost always ambushes and various ungulates, deer, elk, or even other animals like wild pigs. Yeah. It's usually in some sort of natural choke point or bottleneck in the environment where the animal bursts out of hiding, where it's been waiting and grabs the thing and takes it. And people claim, some sort of twisting of a limb or the neck or breaking, and then it's gone. And so it could be the case that if there are smaller livestock that are taken, because people have made those claims about alpacas, they've made them about llamas, about goats, about pigs, it's not, there are some livestock that people claim to have seen Sasquatches opportunistically take, but they take it away.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't ever make the statement like, hey, if your livestock's missing, it was probably a Sasquatch. Some like squatch of the gaps sort of argument, like, no better explanation, had to be a squatch. But I would expect that if they did those sorts of things, you wouldn't find a carcass. There wouldn't be like laying in pieces in the pasture or in the pen where you could say something. It would just be like, hey, where'd that thing go? It's gone, whatever the animal was.
Chickens are
So I think that's why we don't find livestock that you could easily attribute to being killed by something other than
Because it don't leave trace.
certain. But no, I don't think that they would probably exploit that food resource very often. But if they did, we'd probably not know about it for those reasons.
Unless you have eyewitnesses, like we've already talked about, on occasion, actually see them carry out the hog off of the farm or whatever. I mean, I'm originally from this neck of the woods, about 30, 40 miles northeast of here. And one of the earliest reports I heard was from some friends or some neighbors that lived about, half mile down the road, and they saw a pig being carried off, just stepped right over the fence and walked off into the woods.
That's not what Jared said.
Huh?
Just because.
I didn't hear you.
I said that's not what Jared said.
Oh, okay.
Stacy's too hard.
All right, we've got another one right here. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know how to phrase this into a question, but it was when you're on the end right here, we're talking about the dark side of
Yes.
everything.
The artificial intelligence
That's right.
discussion.
One of the things I was curious about is, I know you didn't want to ever have to kill any animal to figure out different things about them. If somebody, or if an animal dies accidentally or something happens, is that what you pursue to try to get what you need, but you didn't kill it? It died of something, or I just wanted opinions about what y'all thought about that. Is that a way of possibly around some of this, that everybody would be in uproar if somebody shot a Sasquatch or something?
Yeah, I don't think there would be anyone who would be upset if you had a type specimen come out of a natural death occurrence, which of course we know happens in our lives in the wild. I mean, that's just, sure, that would be the ideal situation, is that is exactly how it would be discovered, and it would serve as a type specimen.
Right.
So that would be like the best of circumstances. I'm not a hunter, and I certainly, for the sake of science, wouldn't want to kill a living creature, except mosquitoes. But no, if that was the case, that would be like winning the lottery. It's like, there's your type specimen and your discovery. It would be pretty great.
All right, next question.
Yeah, I've got a question for the Area X3.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was wondering, is there a certain time frame during the day or during the night where y'all expected to have like a sighting or encounter? Or was there where y'all had the best luck? It's like
We've had far more daytime.
Coffee or,
We've had far more daytime encounters and visuals than we have at night, which is harder to see at night, right?
Right.
So even if you have thermal, if you even have some sort of night optical devices, we can see better during the daytime. And based on our experiences, our observations in that area, they are active during the day, they're active at night. So we take the opportunity to get out there during the daytime when we can see. And we've had a number of daytime visual encounters. I would say probably it's a ratio of 2 to 1, maybe even 3 to 1.
Oh, wow.
In terms of, And so, and I remember when Matthew first joined the organization, he was really used to sort of doing most of his stuff at night. And he and I had a conversation, and I was like, well, dude, have you ever just tried during the daytime? Because that's when we see them. And he's like, okay, yeah, not really, but you know, I'm open to that. And then, you know, he kind of caught on to it as well. But that's what we've done. I mean, we set up as like wildlife photographers, or in the case when, you know, people were trying to collect one, you just set up in a blind, you know, fully camouflaged. And I had several encounters myself that way, you know, just being completely camouflaged and just totally caught them by surprise. Mistakes during the daytime.
Now, everything Daryl said is correct. A lot of the weird audio stuff and the rocks hitting the roof, and
that's at night.
That's nighttime
Yes.
stuff. Now,
vocalizations.
I do believe they feel more comfortable coming closer
for sure
at night, and that's when like I said, that's when a lot of really weird audio stuff happens. The weirdest thing I've ever experienced in the woods was I didn't see anything.
Oh, tell it.
That's a long story.
You gotta tell it. You gotta tell it. Tell it, right? Let him tell it.
It is now Area X2.
Y'all aren't supposed to get this story for free, so, but yeah, we're sitting out in front of our little hunting cabin that we've got there. We usually run a cold camp, no campfire. Our theory is that it makes us harder to see if they're wanting to come in and check us out. We've always kind of felt like they don't have Netflix or YouTube. We're Netflix and YouTube for them. So a fellow member and I were sitting out front of the cabin, and our cabin sits at the base of a mountain slope, and then I guess at a 90-degree angle to it is a covered. It's a carport is what it is. It's a metal carport type structure, which we got in there to keep equipment dry and just have somewhere to get out of the rain. It rains a lot in there. And we're in front of the cabin parallel to that carport structure. And that structure has one metal wall that comes all the way to the ground, and the other three sides are open. And that wall that comes to the ground is on the mountain side. And we're sitting out there, and suddenly, from this little area between the cabin and kind of behind that metal wall, we hear something just beating the living you-know-what out of the ground with a stick, a log, it just sounds like somebody's got a big bat or something, just bam, 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 just beating the ground, and it sounds like it's 20 yards away. And we had thermal units, and we looked, and we couldn't see anything, but that wall that came down to the ground there is blocking our vision, and our idea is that it's behind that wall right there. So we stayed put, and we waited to see if maybe it would come a little closer. It was trying to get a reaction out of us. Maybe we don't give it what it wants, it'll come a little closer, we can get a look at it. And sure enough, a few minutes later, bam, bam, bam. I don't know, I have a hard time conveying the power, the strength, and you had the impression that it was really angry about something. And if you've ever watched golf on TV, you know that sound right before you make contact with the ball. You could hear whatever it was swinging, cutting the air, the split second before it hit the ground. And it was like bam, bam, bam. And got eyes this big, so one thing we learned a long time ago is that these thermal units can see through black plastic, like trash can material. And so we had strung up this black plastic along the front porch of the cabin, kind of as an observation line. We could be looking out with thermals, and theoretically nothing could see us doing it. So we made a big production out of getting up and going inside, opened the door, shut the door, sat down quietly on the cabin, acted like it scared us inside. And the third time it happened, I was sitting on the edge of the pool. I'm always in the worst spot, I don't know why. But it sounded like it was from me to Shelly, is how loud and powerful it was. It sounded like it could have just reached that plastic and just snatched me off the porch if it wanted to. And again, it's just beating the ground just ferociously. And then the last sound we heard, it was bam, bam, and then I don't know if it swung whatever it was, or if it threw it or what, but then it just slams into the wall of that carport structure. Just bam, bam, and then wham, up against the wall of the carport structure. And that thing vibrated for 3 minutes after it was over. It hummed like a bell, you know, after the fact. And we jumped down off the porch, and we never saw anything. It still baffles me. So maybe it was further up the mountain and threw something and hit the port, but that makes me think it's even a little scarier because of how powerful it was. It seemed like it was just right there. And it's probably the most unnerving thing I've experienced, because what can do that? What's in the woods that
Pitch darkness, yeah.
Yeah, what's out there that we know of officially that could do that? And then we went inside the cabin for real.
Told you that was a good story.
That's a good story.
All right.
My story is very similar. In your
Next question.
Okay, this is for Daryl. Could you tell me which AI engine you use?
It's ChatGPT 3.5. ChatGPT 3.5.
The reason I ask is because I'm kind of my boss's version of data.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's had me, because he's in love with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I found it very easy to trip it up, just
Yeah.
like factual information.
Yeah, well, I found that. I challenged it on a few things, as you saw. I mean, I didn't put everything in there, but this was over weeks. This discussion was.
Okay.
We had an extensive conversation, and I challenged it on some things, and it was sort of like, oh, okay, you got a point there, you know.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, you have to be on your game. You can't just, you can't just accept everything it says, because it can make mistakes. It's not perfect.
Yep.
And I realize that. And if you know something about the subject too, that's really the best way to be when you go
I asked
into
it math and music questions. So,
yeah.
And I disagree that it doesn't have any bias, because
Okay.
unbiased thing is created by people. People have biases.
Absolutely, and that's what I said to it.
That's it.
Yeah, you're
It might
created by
deny
people.
It might deny it, but
Right.
it's wrong if it says
Yeah.
it's unbiased.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next question.
Okay, this is, there's no real answer to this, I guess, because I'm just asking for an opinion from any of you. When these creatures use clubs or sticks to make noises when they throw rocks at the building, do you think they know those are weapons? And if so, why don't they hit people with the rocks, or why don't they try to bounce a club off of your head? Shelly looks like she's been.
I'm gonna do that. And personally, I've only had 2 encounters that were very in my face, but they were 6 days apart in the exact same spot. The second one was throwing rocks and large sticks out of a campfire, because it was burning. I knew where it was. At a tree right next to my head in my tent, over and over and over for 30 minutes. I have it on audio. It's on YouTube. And I don't think they were trying to hurt me or run me off. I think they were trying to count how many of us were in tents. I think they wanted to make me move. Because when something flies into your camp, what would you do? I jump up and go, hey, what is that?
Yeah.
It's easier to move me around so you can be hidden. And that's what I think. And it was frightful and horrible. The worst time of my life, those 30 minutes were horrible. Because like he said, you could hear it. Bam! And then I could feel it bouncing on the ground through my tent and through my sleeping pad. And luckily I had audio and you could hear me. I mean, it was very frightful, but I think they don't want to hurt us. They just want to, okay, there's 3. Let's go this way, keep on them. We'll do our thing, don't worry about it.
I had a friend of mine out one night, and we all had radios and everything, and he had one hit him in the head with a stick.
Yeah.
A stick. Didn't hurt him, but he was peeing when this happened. And Ken Gearhart was there with him, like on the other side of these trees. At the time, this is like probably 18, 20 years ago. Same area, I had a stick thrown at me, but it didn't hit me. I heard it break the stick. Pop, like a green branch, and I heard come through and landed right in front of me. And about 2 or 3 months later, he gets hit in the head with the stick, but it wasn't like, it was like a little pine thing, you know? It wasn't like something that was dangerous. I think if they wanted to pick you off with a rock, they'd pick you off with a rock, you know?
I bet so too.
Of course, in Southeast Texas, good luck finding a rock. It's gonna be crawfish, you know, or something, you know, but he got him with a stick. That's the only thing I've ever heard about that, but the accuracy, I think, just in my opinion, I mean, no one's, that I know ever observed this would be like, if they wanted to do it, they got the skill set, you know? Yeah.
So I'll take an example of gorillas, which are very large, powerful animals, and if they wanted to come up to you and really rip you in half, they have the strength to do that. And yet they always choose to bluff charge. And in fact, most of the time, before they even get that close with a bluff charge, they will grab a branch off a big tree and pull it down towards them and shake it really hard, which is then making them look even bigger because they're now attached to this really huge substrate. And the way that we interpret that as primatologists is that here's an animal that if they really did want to be aggressive, I mean, you don't stand a chance, and yet it's almost like they're using it as a reminder that they're huge, they could hurt you, you're in their territory, and it's like their way of just like saying, you know, stay where you are or stay back, or don't forget how much stronger we are than you. Because the idea is with any really large animal is that you want to make yourself smaller, you want to remain calm, right? Whereas their point in doing all this is to look bigger and to intimidate, but not necessarily hurt. So just to draw a reference from the animal kingdom, like it's not a rare thing for an animal to do that.
And it works for them. It's always worked for them. You know, I think it probably works across a variety of species. All they have to do is make a lot of noise. I'm talking about the Sasquatch now. We've always considered it to be intimidation behavior. You know, throwing rocks, and it just go right up to the edge of sort of physical confrontation, but they won't ever cross that because they don't need to. I mean, typically with humans, I mean, I would say 99.5%, 99.8% of all humans, the second they get a rock thrown at them, the second they get a tree limb thrown at them or whatever, they're going to run. They're out of there. I mean, I've talked to witnesses who've left everything. Their entire campsite, they leave it intact, they leave it behind all their equipment, they'll leave behind an RV, they get in their vehicle, they drive out, they're gone, they're never coming back. That's what humans typically do, and I think after, you know, eons of interactions between Homo sapiens and our ancestors and whatever these things are, I'm sure they're hardwired. This works, so, you know, no need to do anything more risky, because really confrontation can be risky, even though they're the dominant in terms of physicality and strength. It's still risky, right? I mean, there's still some risk involved if we go head on. So, you know, they don't have to do that. They don't need to. So.
All right, next question here to the panel's left.
Actually, this one is for Michael and Daryl and Matt. Since your recent epiphany and so on about killing, are you still going out to Area X, or what activities are y'all involved in these days, if you can let us know?
We plan on still being in that area, for sure. I mean, the whole first 10 years I was in this, we were taking reports and talking to witnesses, not just because it was interesting, it was, but we were trying to nail down where these things are. And I think there are many places where they are, but we know they're there. So that part of the equation, I think, is no longer a real variable for us. But we're some slightly new area. I think I alluded to it last night at the restaurant. It's easier for us to move on to a different group of these creatures than it is for us to get new material. we're gonna try our old tricks on a new bunch of these.
We've tried every
creatures.
trick in the playbook just
Yeah.
about, you know?
So, yeah, we're still going out there, and we still consider ourselves hunters, but now it's with a lens. A lot of the same tactics come into play, you know, so I don't know if that answers it completely before you ask it or not, but yeah, we're still gonna be involved in the field.
Just curious.
Yeah, I've always been very active in the field in southern Appalachia and continue to do so, North Georgia, East Tennessee, West North Carolina mostly, and parts of the Cumberland Plateau too, so that's never changed.
You live in Tennessee now, right?
Yeah, I've been there for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And I still have the good fortune of traveling around the country and getting in the field in other places here and there, but mostly it's always, southern Appalachia's been the real heart of that. Even when I was going to Area X 6 times a year, I would still make a lot of time to be out in my old haunts, let's say it. So now these guys have enough time to join me.
Yeah, so as you well know, yeah, I've attempted to collect one in the past, and the weapon of my choice now is a Canon 200mm zoom.
Yeah,
and,
not a Canon.
Canon, yeah, camera. I may make that very clear. So, and you know what? It's a lot. There's a lot more. Man, when you go out with a rifle to shoot something, it's a serious business, right? Yeah, with a camera, it's a lot more fun. You can't get a bullet back once you send it. I could take pictures of anything, everything, all day long. And it's, last year, the year before, I got a picture of the biggest black bear that I've ever seen, 500 pounds at least. It's massive. Yeah, Burnsy was there, a guy over here, Matthew was there. Matthew got pictures of it running through the woods. It didn't even know I was there. I was totally gillied. And I heard a rock kicked beside me, and I turned and looked, and there's this massive black bear. It's from here in Chester. It's like right there, and the thing's just massive. We call him Angus, yeah. And he didn't even know I was there because I was gillied. I mean, I was completely gillied, and I've got my camera. I've got a sidearm, but I'm not going to use that unless he just... and he just turns around and starts walking off, and I'm just taking pictures, one after another. Then he turns around and he's coming back. I'm like, okay, dude, you need to stop right where you are. So I stand up and I go, ha! And he just, boom, he takes off running through the woods. Just, he didn't even know I was there. So it was really cool. Really cool. I got a bunch of pictures I can stand up.
Next question. This is for Dr. Muir. After 4 seasons, has anybody, cast or crew, seen a Bigfoot?
Well, I can't tell you what happens in season 4. So between season 1 and 3, my answer would be different than Russell's, and my answer would be different than Ronnie's. And I have seen things that have made me really scratch my head and raise an eyebrow, and it's just strange. I find there's always a lot of high strangeness on these investigations, particularly as they mention at night. I know the sounds in the forest and what makes them, and I hear some things that I'm just like, that is so out of place and doesn't sound like anything that I know of out here. But if you ask Ronnie, I think it'd be safe to say he's seen a lot of them. And if I asked Russ, I think he has caught on thermal and different things that are inconclusive, but still kind of really intriguing. Yeah. So I think our experiences all, our viewpoints all vary. I think we have come very close in those 3 seasons to something odd, but I, can't quite definitively say what that has been.
All right, next question here.
So you guys are talking about Texas and Alaska now, and then the Appalachia. What are the top 5 areas of the United States that sightings are?
I mean, like the original, when you first started hearing Bigfoot, it's Pacific Northwest. I mean, Northern California, Washington, Oregon, British Columbia. But, it's really, Florida is always been a hotbed. But now that, the internet and everyone looking for Bigfoot, every place seems like a hot spot. Central Park in New York. But just from I get most of my stuff filtered through typical wildlife hunting and fishing streams. A lot of people, those channels. And, being in Texas, obviously I'm going to hear a lot in Texas, but I tend to hear a fair amount in like Mississippi, Arkansas, some of those parts of the world, just from my perspective.
Well, it's interesting question, because sightings, encounters, at least from this European settler perspective, predate in the U.S. interior highlands, in this particular the south central part of the United States, continental United States, predate the Northwest by far. We've got sightings in this area reportedly going back, centuries, and so there's always been a history of encounters here, for sure. I mean, we've got, there's an interesting report from Georgia from 1818 or something. You've got reports in early Arkansas, 1834, 1843, Missouri, Eastern Oklahoma was still a territory. There's all kinds of interesting historical, and as a historian, those really always intrigue me. But you've got those going back centuries in this region. So there's definitely a long-term establishment of this animal here in the lore.
All right, next question right here.
I had shared this with the guys in the back that had moose, and I worked at the San Antonio Zoo for a while. And one morning when I got there fairly early, it was still dark, I heard a sound, and it something I didn't know. I thought it was mating. I didn't know what it was. So I shared it with them, and the one guy back there, he knew exactly what it was, but I wanted to let y'all listen to it if you can.
This was at the zoo?
San Antonio Zoo.
Yeah, howler monkey.
I would say a black howler monkey.
Now we've got 15 seconds.
That sounds like I recorded that in my cousin's backyard. I don't know how it got in there.
So, in Lyle Blackburn's book, the Texas Bigfoot book, he asked me, like, what's the thing that got you interested in actually doing some field research? And it was hearing something very similar to that in East Texas. It wasn't quite that, but it was enough that it was like, okay, that's a primate. Because I had just been in South America fishing 8 months earlier and was messing with howler monkeys in every cove and calling back at them. And they would get mad at me and throw sticks and all kind of junk at us. But it was really loud like that, and that made me think, maybe there's something to this more than just like a rumor, because it sounded like a primate that I had heard before. But yeah, howler monkey. She probably knows a lot more about them.
No, but I've definitely slept under howler monkeys, which I don't recommend. Does San Antonio Zoo have howler monkeys? That would be my first question.
That's a great question.
If they have howler monkeys, then there you go. But I love it when the audience also presents. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
And one of the other things I thought was hilarious is we have the otters in the same area as the gibbons. And the gibbons, whoop, 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 whoop. They whoop all the
That was
time.
really good.
And there was a golden one, and she was the female, and there were 3 males. One was supposedly her husband that she had to keep whooping at all the time because he would flirt. I would flirt with all the women that would come by. They'd get close to the cage, and she'd be whooping on them. Because she would actually go up and grab him and throw him into their cage area.
That's my type of giving.
And then if the boys were acting up, she'd do the same. She'd take both of them and throw them.
Well, it's funny because gibbons are monogamous and they live in these family groups. So generally they use those vocalizations to keep other mates out. Like, this is our turf.
I could hear her because I actually sold memberships to the zoo, so I could see her up as they were up higher. But there was one time in particular the otters wanted attention, just like the gibbons wanted attention. So at one point, they were throwing things, the gibbons were throwing things at the otters to make them go inside to not get their attention. And they do the same, they would be acting antics, and the gibbons would just go, well, forget it, I'm going inside. So there was this constant battle, it was hilarious.
Thank you for sharing. And just on an interesting note, our conference alumni, as Ken Gerhard would often say, he's also a volunteer at the San Antonio Zoo, which I think is one of the few, if not only zoos, who's ever launched an expedition to go search for the Yeti, which is pretty interesting to consider that decades ago. Whoa. Had a question?
Two questions. One is, you know, the sound that we hear or people report hearing calling wood knocks. I just wondered has anyone seen them doing a wood knock with a stick or something, or other people have said that they may be able to make that like, you know, a really loud with their mouth. And then the other question would be, as a primatologist, the behavior you see with gorillas and primates in the wild, the behavior that people report with Sasquatches, which ones are very, you know, correlate very, very closely with what you see in the wild with primates, and what behavior is that's different, that's unique to Sasquatch?
Okay, as far as the wood knocking question, to my knowledge, no one's ever seen.
People claim.
Have they?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there's.
I have one that's really close. Let me tell that.
Yeah, okay.
So I have one that's really close. He didn't actually see. So he heard a wood knock. He turned and, well, actually, something similar happened to me. But this guy turned to. He heard a wood knock. He turned to look, and then there's one beeping from behind a tree. I heard two wood knocks. I looked up the mountain about 75 meters away, and I see a black, dark figure lurking down the mountain. So I think from our experience, we've heard knocks, then we've seen them. We've never seen one hit a tree or do whatever it is they're doing, whether it's a rock, a log, what, we're not sure.
Yeah, but there are witness testimonies that people claim to have seen them in the act of swinging a club.
One interesting thing we have found is we have found cut pieces of firewood,
Yes.
hardwood, that have been borrowed off of firewood stacks and off porches and things, and we find them at the base of these hardwood trees that have obviously taken a beating, and it'll turn out that's a direction from which we've been hearing sounds like that, but we've never directly observed.
So my other encounter that was 6 days before the rock throwing in the exact same spot, for 2 days, I didn't know what to think, because it was like, really, I'm coming out here to the Pacific Northwest, and Sasquatch is actually here? For 2 days, every night at the same time, off the ridge, these massive wood knocks. One behind me, there were like three, like it was texting or something.
Yeah.
It was crazy, I was just like, no way.
Geolocation.
Yes. It went on all night. At one point, there were guys out in the woods between me, well, they're out in the woods, I'm at camp, would knock in between us. I'm not believing it. I'm just like, this is too good to be true. So we make a plan the next day. Me and the small guy stay out, cold camp. The big guys get in their tents. Same thing, same story, same time, same channel. He starts right up there. This big, massive, you know, cracking like a baseball home runner.
Yeah.
But every 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, down that ridge. It's a 10-mile hike to the top of that ridge. It made it down to my camp in about 2 hours. This one in the meadow never moved, and it was passing. It would knock back to this one. Then, what happened, I feel like I'm watching sound move through the forest, because it's a full moon, and it's a super blue moon, and it's in a lodgepole pine forest, so there's nothing here to 20 feet up, because when those trees get a fire in the area, it just burns the branches, it doesn't burn down the trees. So we can see, you know, and it is special, it's weird, it's gray, but I can see everything. Myself and Nathaniel Bronis, who crazy, brilliant young man he is, are screaming the Sierra sounds in the dark and laughing. All of a sudden, now mind you, I've been working with thermal and experimenting on what happens at night with all kinds of animals. And what I know, you can't make birds do anything until you hit the tree. You can scream your head off all night long. They're not moving. They don't care. But when you reverberate the tree that they're roosting in, they leave. All of a sudden, this massive knock on this giant tree, and the birds go.
Wow.
Over me. And I'm like, what the heck? And then it moves through the dark part of the tree line where we can't see through. And it's breaking massive sounds, like just crack. Like it wants us to know he's there and pay attention to me. And I'm like, this is unreal, this is silly. I don't know, this is a bear. And then all of a sudden, I hear that weird pop. It's like real loud, really, really loud. I'm like, what the heck was that? And it walked out. This massive black silhouette in the moonlight walks out. Down towards the other one that's not in the meadow. And I cursed real bad right then, and I'm like, what? And Nathaniel says he turns towards me and he sees my brim and my hat looking in this direction, and he looks, and it looks like it's floating through the, like down on a skateboard ride. Not fast, not slow, like, you could tell it was big because it moved really fast at a slow pace because it's got really big stride. That's what and he says it turns, I see it 3 times, boom, boom, boom. And then it turns and he can see light in the arms. I never saw hair, never saw face. I saw a massive, perfect silhouette because that super blue moon, it's like, remember the eclipse? You couldn't see the eclipse, but the shadows were like cutouts. It was so perfect. But that pop you talk about, that was intriguing because I didn't know, is that this?
Yeah, we call it
or
mouth
is it
pop.
this?
Yeah.
And the knocks, are they hitting the tree with a rock or are they actually hitting with wood? I don't know, but that's unique and I felt very fortunate, but I also lost my mind for about 6 months because I didn't want to believe all that. But yeah, that's just my little story.
Oh, there was a second question for Dr.
Okay, I was just going to say real quick. Well, chimps drum trees with their feet, and you can hear them apparently, half mile, 3/4 of a mile away. They also hit trees with rocks. Chimps have been documented doing that, so that's sort of another correlation with the known great apes.
What was your question?
So, as a primatologist, what behavior do you see with wild primates that is also reported with Sasquatch, and what does that behavior mean? And then what are some behaviors that are reported of Sasquatch that appear to be unique to them that you don't see in the apes and the primates?
Well, one was just mentioned, but then also there's, to my knowledge, there have been reports of Sasquatches placing like rocks underneath the base of a tree. Has anybody heard this, or is like? I don't know. Does it have a name?
Well,
Just like rock stacks.
oh, yeah. What do you call those? The rock stacks? Cairns. Yeah, cairns.
So we see that with chimps as well. The thing that has always puzzled me is that so many reports are of Bigfoot sightings at night, despite also being seen during the day, but at night and active at night and on roads walking and that sort of thing. Yeah. And that is not something that you see in large apes, like the nocturnal movements, right? Like gorillas and chimps, gorillas will make nests, they sleep there, kind of destroy the nest, and then they move on in the morning. But at night, like, they hunker down, and so the nocturnal nature of Bigfoot is not seen with great apes.
The eye shine thing is a curious thing. Sasquatch is reported to have eye shine.
Right.
But the chimps and gorillas don't.
Correct.
Orangs don't.
so part of being nocturnal is you have the tapetum lucidum, which is that reflective layering on your eye that then gives you the eye shine, and that's been reported in Bigfoots, and that's also not something that you see in gorillas and chimps. So, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. There's some differences. Like, for example, you guys were talking about the walking off with a pig or hunting deer. Chimps are known to be hunters, so there's a similarity. But usually, animals like, say, as big as gorillas are more vegetarians, and in fact, pretty much strictly vegetarians, and they just eat a lot of bulk, and then they sit around for a long time, not exert a lot of energy, but then they eat a lot more bulk, but they're not meat eaters. So, those are some examples.
Thank you.
I tell you, orangutans are really cool. Orangutans have been documented trying to steal boats and start the motors. Seriously, fact. Orangutans have been documented picking the locks of their cells and escaping, setting all the other orangutans free in their cells, and then the guy who does it goes back into his cell and locks the door. So that then when the trainers, when the watchkeepers come in, this guy's just sitting there just, playing innocent like he didn't do anything. So they put a camera in, and that's how his name was Fu Manchu, is what they called him. And he would hide this piece of wire in his cheek and jaw, and he would use that to pick the lock. So when I hear people say this, Sasquatch is just a dumb ape, I'm like, do you know anything about apes? The orangutans, the chimps, gorillas, they're just super intelligent, and these things are every bit as intelligent. I like to say they have the brawn of a gorilla, the brains of a chimp or orang, and the furtiveness of a mountain lion. And you combine all that into one species, and that's what we're after.
I have an orangutan story that's worth telling just real quick. I went to talk about how smart they are. They're also snarky. So I went to this place, and a guy had trained animals like for television and stuff, and he had an orangutan. It's my favorite animal my favorite primate since I saw the Clint Eastwood movies when I was a kid, right? And the thing jumps up on this thing, and there's this girl there, and there's a photo op with it, right? And this girl's sitting there, and the orangutan's like holding on like this, and I watch him do like this, and look at her butt, and then turn her head like that, and then he reached his hand out behind her and felt her butt, and then turned his head like that. And he's going like this. And I'm like, she goes, what just happened to me? So I think you just felt up by a great ape. But that's my own, I'm not a primatologist. I've only been around orangutan one time, which was awesome, but you could just see that thing like thinking. You know what I mean? It was like, he knew that, he needed to hide himself. He checked it out first. It was wild, but I'd never seen, and I've been around chimps and a few things before, but that was the first time I ever saw, he was thinking stuff out, you know what I mean? It blew my mind, but now I gotta look up these ones that are picking locks, man, that's crazy. Fu Manchu, I'm on that, that's my rabbit hole for the night.
All right, next question.
Mine might sound dumb, but so y'all say that you chase them into inaccessible terrain or rough terrain. What's preventing the exploration of that terrain?
People that are willing to do it. I cracked my spine in Area X in 2013 doing that very thing. We've had broken ankles, broken wrists, cracked, bones. So, it's very risky for humans. We're frail. We're very frail, and it's difficult for us to engage in such terrain. But for these things, it's like a dolphin in the water. And you see this thing run up a rocky slope, and you think, well, I could do that. And then you try it, and the next thing you know, you're lying on your back, and you can't move. And so it's just the terrain is inhibitive, and they know that. That's why they're there. They go there because, they're masters of that environment. And we're very much out of our element when we're in that sort of environment. Even those of us who are in excellent physical condition have a difficult time in terrain like that. These things is nothing. It's just nothing to them. You can't, and they're fast. They're wild creatures that are massively powerful. And you just can't imagine how fast and big and strong they are, and it just leave us in the dust. It's, you know, we have to rely on technology.
Drones. Thermal drones. We almost got one on thermal. We saw it, Sasquatch, and the guy chasing it.
Yeah, thermal drones, I think, are gonna be that. The guys I work with the most in the Pacific Northwest, we're in a location that we go to all the time. It's got great history. It seems to come in like clusters, like about every 5 years. A lot goes on and then it dies off. And it was in May, and the guys were making a lot of noise. It was in a rock quarry. So echo was leaving this rock quarry. And my friend said, hey, I hear something on the top. The rock's shuffling. Pull the drone out. And this guy, my friend, just got this drone from another friend. And he said, you better practice. Remember how I preached today? Practice. He said, all right, Shelly, I'll practice on the crackheads in my neighborhood. I said, do it. Because y'all, in mid-sound, you could talk on it. And he was going to tell him he was God. And I was like, yeah, do it. I have a drone too, and I practice because I want to, Michael Walden, he has a drone, he practices. And the thing is, you can't predict what's going to happen, especially at night. So anyway, they lift the drone, they get down, there it is. It's on the ground, watching. And it gets down really low and it moves. And Shane, our friend, is like, there's something there, it's moving towards the road. Everybody jumps up, runs down, and as soon as they get to the creek, right before the road, all of a sudden, bam, 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 across the creek, over there. Not this guy, something else. So my crazy, brilliant little friend, Daniel, grabs his thermal and races off into the woods where the sound comes from. And they can see a Sasquatch and Nathaniel. Nathaniel's is going after it. This thing is going from tree to tree, stopping, kind of hiding. Nathaniel can see nothing. I can't believe he could go through that terrain. Was my friend Shane, where's the record? Record. I can't find it. But 2 other guys were watching too, on either side of him. I'm like, why didn't anybody just turn the camera on, record the screen? So, but I think thermal drone is gonna be the key. Sorry. It was a cool story though, wasn't it?
Sure.
I was wondering, if y'all take pictures of, like, video area, and you, I'm sure that you'd be able to see, that the information from the light would still be picked up through the camera. So there would still be something in there. I mean, you would still be able to get that.
I think a lot of people do try to apply that sort of methodology where they photograph areas as large as they can manage, whether that's standing stationary and taking like panoramic views or flying with a drone, depending on how visible the canopy is. But again, an animal that's so large tends to need quite a bit of room, and it tends to be mobile within that room. And so it could be the case, even if we're talking about mountain lions, for example, you could sample, even in very high definition, a large square mileage of mountain lion habitat with zero guarantee that there's an animal within that sample. And so drones are a difficult proposition in certain parts of the country, like where I'm from. It's all eastern deciduous forest, and it's jungle thick in the summertime. And so people have talked about, oh, Sasquatch is real, why aren't there satellite pictures? And it's like, the proposition I always say is like, all right, pull up Google Maps right now, go to satellite view, or aerial photos. Look at North Georgia, the same slide I showed you. there's at least 4,000 black bears in that photo. And I'll give you $100 for every one you can point out to. And all you see is a really high-resolution image of a beautiful green canopy. And so until something can penetrate that, so it probably is a worthwhile endeavor at some point, but even if you were to sample something of that size, well, again, how many Sasquatches would even be within that square mileage? There's still no guarantees, but technological advances like that would be worth pursuing and looking into. But I do think there is an element of wishful thinking that happens, especially on the online world, where people take random photos of landscapes and then spend their time looking for anything vaguely human-shaped. And man, you know, has this perished? No. So, if you were to look in the grain in this floor, I bet I could find you like 10 faces if we looked hard enough, just right here. You know, if you want to see something badly enough, you'll find it. So, it's a little tricky when, oh, I got to show you this picture. I got one. I'm like, oh, what did you do to get it? Oh, I didn't know. I was just driving around taking photos. I didn't see it until I got home. I'm usually like, here we go. And it's usually not, you know, so.
Okay, I want to go back to the, when somebody asked Mireya about similarities between known great ape behavior and reported Sasquatch behavior. And I was just going to tell a little story about this was actually very near the South Sulphur Unit at Cooper Lake State Park. We used to do a lot of research back there in the early 2000s, and at a 20-acre piece of property that there were reported sightings on this property. I mean, I've encountered weird stuff at that property, but we found a very, very large anthill there. And it was a single woman that lived there. And in that anthill, we found a piece of hay, straw.
We've seen that, yeah.
Pressed into the anthill, just like chimps fish for ants. So I witnessed that myself, an anthill with a piece of straw poked into it, which, you know, it doesn't mean that that's what happened, but my summation was that a Sasquatch was using that to fish for ants out of this anthill. So I just wanted to throw that in, going back to, you know, tool use, you know, between known great apes and Sasquatch.
So recently, I investigated a report from Southeast Texas from very, very credible witnesses, a pastor and his wife, and found that very thing on their property. She saw they have a private lake there. They actually live on the church. It's the church property. It's like a big resort. It's beautiful, piney woods, and they have a big, like 5-acre lake. And she saw this thing like on the side of the lake fishing, like, you know, getting fish out of the lake. Well, and part of our investigations, I found big anthill just like that. And there was this long stick stuck into the ant. They're the only people that are there. It's their older couple, and they're not out there playing in the ant pile. So I thought that was very interesting, and it's cool that you brought that up.
I'll ask one as we're getting to someone else has a question. When it comes to field techniques and innovations in technology, what would you guys recommend or suggest could be some equipment to use that might help yield some convincing evidence in the field? We talked about thermal drones. Can you guys think of anything else that might help as we continue on?
Camera. Everybody's got to have a camera.
Yeah, and I would also recommend, a lot of people are torn between some sort of night vision device and thermal device, and I would go thermal every time, personally.
LiDAR?
What would you say?
LiDAR.
Okay.
So I work with thermal a lot, and I'm very consistent with my thermal. I have 3 cameras. I set them up, they record all night, and recorders. But just an example of how great thermal is. I've discovered some new things about what thermal can do for you and what animals actually do at night. That's why I went back into my tracking school, because I felt like I was losing it because I was depending on the thermal. I've seen people say they've got touched in the middle of the night, but I have a bird that flies right here every night hunting, and the bird's touching people. You know, it's simple things, but perfect example, I was talking about this guy. City guy, Boston, Massachusetts guy. Comes out 3 times a year, he's great, he's smart, he's tenacious. He says, Shelly, show me everything. I want to see a Sasquatch. Great. Buys a thermal. 5 years in a row, that man is up all night with that thermal. Just scanning, walking, scanning. 5 years in a row, he has thermed 5 cougars in the middle of the night. 2 this year, together. He's sitting in the middle of a meadow, just therming. And the cougars can't see him, so they start to stalk him because they know he's there. Thermal can be brilliant, but you have to work with it. Once again, practice, knowing all your recordings and such and such. My cameras, they record when something walks in front of it. His signature comes on, boom, it goes on and records. I've learned also through working with these machines that conductive metals will give me a 360-degree angle. It records behind my camera if I face it towards aluminum. And I did that with practicing with cats. They were coming in my yard over there, and there just happened to be a piece of aluminum my husband left by the gate that I knew they would go out of, because I was trying to figure out, can Mireya work for me? Because it does in my truck, right? You look out your truck window, you see yourself, right? So I got mirrors and stuff, and there's an aluminum piece laying there, and all of a sudden I see a reflection in the aluminum, but no cat. And then the cat shows up. It's capturing this cat's image perfectly at like 30 feet. So I think the future is going to be real fast for us. I think, you know, everything kind of goes slow and then it catches up. And I think it's a great time to be exploring in this field with thermals, and thermal drones are awesome. You just got to practice. Know where you record that.
We're a firm believer in audio recorders.
Yes.
Angelo Caparella, a longtime birder in the NAWAC, really pushed the NAWAC to put out these 24/7 recorders, audio recorders that you could deploy for months. And we had them out for 3 and 4 months. A lot of data to go through, but there was a treasure trove in it. If you go to the NAWAC's website and you go to their audio page, you'll hear all those whoops we talked about, and you'll be amazed at those sounds. I mean, they're Gibbon-like, but yet not. They're similar, kindred to Gibbons, but distinct. So audio recorders, you can get it. It's not really cheap, but I carry into the field during the daytime. I carry a small Tascam recorder. I deploy it, I camouflage it, I deploy it up in a tree so that it can record wood knocking, it can record vocalizations, any encounters that way as well. So just don't overlook the importance of audio recordings.
I got a suggestion on the recorder thing that's really cool. I don't remember where I learned it, somebody taught me. For some reason, when, let's say you're out in the woods, for whatever reason, you're fishing, you're just exploring, you're looking for Sasquatch, whatever. When you decide to leave, turn your recorder on, throw it out of the vehicle, and leave.
Yeah.
And they will get wood knocks, like, hey, they left.
Right.
That 15 minutes later, pick up your recorder and say, bye. So I know that is an easy, you know, a thing to do. Also, to add to your recorders, I lost my thought, I'll think of it in a minute, but yeah, things like that. Oh, I know it was, equipment in general should be not for me. I find it's more reasonable for me to attach my equipment to my camera. This is a human thing, and it looks weird in the woods.
Yeah.
They know. All of the animals know. They smell it or something. And then, I don't know about you guys, but I've been working with hex suits that block the EMF, because I don't think it's gonna like completely block them from seeing my EMF if that's what they feel or read.
But I wonder sometimes, and I want to wrap my equipment like game cam in EMF to where when they figure it out, it's too late. So little experiments like that with new technologies is kind of interesting, and that's what I like to do.
New technology is awesome. It'll probably solve some of these mysteries, but if you're not a tech person, you can't afford this stuff, or it blows your mind. Don't let that stop you from going out there. Right. 2 cowboys with a primitive camera is the reason all of us are in this room. And they had some horses walking out on an awesome area and put some time in. So don't forget that too. So if like the tech blows your mind, this guy's talking to Skynet and stuff over there. He's gonna get the Terminator after us. These guys are smart. I'm the dumb one on this panel, you know? But honestly, the tech is incredible. I have a little thermal that we use, but if you don't have that, use an audio recorder, buy you a cheap one, something like that. Bring a camera like Daryl suggested, and don't let that intimidate you. You don't have to have thermal drones. I'm not qualified to fly kite, much less a drone, right? The last one I tried was a cheapo. It's in Cuba somewhere now. But use what you can and consult these people who've used like this, like Shelly and these guys have used this equipment. I know they'd be glad to tell you what models and what to do, but don't let that stop you.
I give up a lot of stuff so I can have thermals.
I get it. So we actually tried. We've employed quite a few drones, thermal drones. We got a $30,000 drone. It's really about the best commercially available. Thing is, the canopy is so thick, it just didn't do us any good. So we tried that. Then we tried some small drones. Probably about half the size of my end, that were supposedly really good at maneuvering through the trees. We tried it in the wintertime, and it was still, we were able to fly them through there, but you have to be very, very careful because it's so dense. It's like a jungle, even in the wintertime. We never had any success with the drones. And I'm not saying they won't work. I'm just saying that for us, we found it to be very, very difficult to get any really good work out of drones.
And you need to get a license just to be on the safe side. It's really, I work on that too.
Good input by you guys, and good point by Chester. Gadgets have come a long way since '67. Got another question right here.
Excuse me. I'll make a long story short. I saw 2 creatures down at Sam Houston a couple of years ago. I was standing on the logging road looking down the hill at them. One went to my left, the other stood up and walked off to the right.
Can you say where? What it was close to? Kelly, Stubblefield?
Close to Stubblefield.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's the area.
Buddy came by and we were standing on the road talking about it. And all of a sudden we heard what has been told to me is called a bionic bird. Has anybody ever heard of that? Yeah. It's an ungodly sound. It's really, really loud, and it sounds almost mechanical.
I have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. I just wondered if anybody else was aware.
So, I heard of this term from Jim Lansdale like 22 years ago, and it sounds very similar to a screech owl trill, but it's like ungodly loud, what we've heard, and very bizarre. And I don't know what did this, but I'll let you guys figure it out. I was in a stand when I was in the proving to take one out the other way days, and in a climbing tree stand, and we heard the sound, and it was stomping through the woods making the sound. So that blew my mind right there. I'm like, that ain't an owl. If it is, I'm more scared than if it's a Sasquatch. Mothman has come. But the other time was, I was on another stand doing the same exact thing, and I had a dozen hogs that come to this corn that we had put out. And they were sitting there all night, and a barred owl called out. They were there, I had like 100 pounds of corn put out. And they never moved. Coyotes howled out, several of them pretty close, never moved. That little bionic bird sound caught, and they ran like the wind. And the lead boar stood, I had Generation 3 night goggles, it was before I had thermals, years and years ago. And he stood in the middle of this trail, and he was blowing his nostrils, trying to wind it. And the other hogs were off, and I heard him doing that. And finally he winded it, let out a squeal, and they all took off and left. So, I don't know what that was, but that's my experience with something that someone would say sounded birdish, and I've heard things like that before. I don't know what it was, but I know it was creepy, and it wasn't a screech owl that I heard. So.
Question here.
This question's from Mireya. So when you first were asked to do this and you started this, what was your, what did you expect? What was your belief in Bigfoot at that point? If you could give it a percentage or something, like you said, we're going to go out there and not find anything. And then after, all the investigations you've done at this point, how, what's your belief at this point as far as the existence of these types of creatures?
That is a good question. Were you at my talk?
No.
Because part of what I talked about was I had no experience with Bigfoot prior to this, and honestly, I didn't really have an interest in it because I didn't really know much about it, and this just wasn't part of my studies or kind of even upbringing and world. So I didn't have, let's say, a whole lot of expectations going in, other than I was going to treat it like any other one of my expeditions, and I was actually surprised by how similar many of the Bigfoot researcher methodologies were to what we employ as primatologists. Hello, out in the field, like playing vocalizations and different things, and just the tracking, all of that. But I didn't know at all what to expect. 4 seasons in, and so when you asked, I think you kind of asked, was I a believer?
Well, yeah, you were probably skeptical at first. Are you more inclined to believe that there's something else?
Right. So I hate the word skeptic. I'm not a skeptic because I feel like it has a really negative connotation to it, and it implies you have sort of a closed mind about it, and you have to be convinced. And that's not what I am. I'm not a skeptic. I'm very open-minded, but I do need evidence because I'm a scientist, and I think that's very different. But I now have experienced, like, it's funny because whenever anybody would talk about the other stuff that wasn't as, like the physical, tangible, I would immediately just shut that out. Now I'm more, like, let's call it less, like, dismissive about it if I start to see patterns and different things and repetitiveness. And in and of itself, it's not evidence, nor would I ever think it's evident, but I think you can't just dismiss something if it keeps happening over and over and over in the same set of circumstances. So I did not come in, quote unquote, like believing, because I knew really nothing about it other than there's a legend of Bigfoot. But the thing that has stayed, and I can't tell you that I believe now because it's not a religion, but I still don't have that intangible evidence that I need to say this is, certainly in existence, or I can't prove that. But I am just as open-minded as when I started, and in fact, perhaps more so because of like certain things that I've seen or have experienced out in the field.
Great. All right, next question.
Okay. I'm wondering if y'all have ever considered the possibility that there's more than one species involved in what's all grouped together as Bigfoot. And the reason I ask is because Florida has the skunk ape, and it's named skunk ape because it smells really bad. And I'm wondering how an ambush predator that smells really bad can be successful.
If we're talking strictly about North America, I think there's probably not many differentiated subspecies, but I tend to favor lumpers rather than splitters. And right now there's 16 recognized subspecies of black bear, many of which are they're contentious because they're not really borne out by genetic studies. They're differentiated by minor differences that you could attribute to like clinal difference or differences of essentially geography, small adaptations. When you look at the totality of Sasquatch reports, of course there are regional names. So wood booger, woolly booger, these southern derivatives of the boogeyman term, that element of Scotch-Irish or other parts of European folklore that made it over here. Very often people hear regional names and they start to associate various things with them. Oh, well, the woolly booger in the south is different than the skunk ape further south in Florida, that subtropical is different than Momo or the grassman, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at the data set of evidence, which is the only thing that we can look at that is objective, but you still have to look at it subjectively because, you know, it requires interpretation. You know, there's really not enough differentiating that you couldn't attribute solely to individual age and sex. So, you know, you could differentiate what seemed to be adult tracks into two size groups that seemed to be adult males and adult females because, as Dr. Mireya mentioned, you know, primates are sexually dimorphic, especially the apes. The males are significantly larger sizes than the females. Gigantopithecus, that is probably the strongest ancestral candidate, at least in terms of a genus that could have produced the ancestors of the Sasquatch, are, as far as we know, the most sexually dimorphic apes that ever lived. You see the same thing reflected in Sasquatch reports, where females are typically reported 6 to 6.5 feet tall, males in that 7.5 up to 8 foot range, etc. And so there's certain myths that go along with these regional names, like, oh, they're more aggressive in the south. The most aggressive reports are in the extreme northwest, whether Alaska, parts of British Columbia, the Sunshine Coast. There are many more aggressive reports there than there are in the southeastern U.S. Or that, you know, the ones in Florida smell bad. Well, you could look at the totality of those reports, and only about 10% or so of reports are even associated with any sort of smell whatsoever. But it just seems to be the case that these names sort of they make their own mythology that gets associated with. Or, you know, that there is some degree of Bergman's rule that seems to be in play, and we don't have a full sample set. Bergman's rule basically states that animals are larger within the same genus and species the further away from the equator they get. Now, we don't have a full sample set of the continent, right? But most of the tracks come from the Pacific Northwest. Right. The largest Sasquatch track that's ever been cast that has the highest degree of being legitimate is the Elkins Creek cast from central Georgia. Right. So, you know, getting close to the subtropics. That's getting, you know, down towards the Georgia-Florida line there, which is also a terrible band, by the way. I think it would be easier, it's an easier proposition to start with, like, well, let's just say that there's probably one genus and species, and maybe something does indicate subspecies, but there's a lot of interpretation that happens too, you know, where people will say, well, what I saw looked more like a human, and somebody said, well, what I saw looked more like an ape. Well, let's define some things. Like, humans are apes. So how familiar is this person with other non-human great apes when they make the determination that it looked more like a human and less like one of these other apes? And so there's all these interpretive schemas that people have, where they're schemata collectively, and then people go, oh, well, he said it looked like this, so that must be a type 1, and they said it looked like that, so it's a type 2, and, you know, on and on and on. Where
it could be the same thing.
Well, I think what's more likely, it's more likely that it's the same thing. Now, when you get into other parts of the world, certainly there's the diminutive hominids like the Ibu-Gogo, the Orang-Pindek, etc. Other parts, there's the more man-like forms, the Almas, the Almasti, you know, Mongolia, in Russia, parts of the Himalayas, and then to like the Barmanu and the Hindu Kush, on and on. So there seem to be these other, probably other genera in other parts of the world, but I think we have a hard enough time trying to prove that this one particular species exists before we go, well, you know, there's 4 different species of these things, or 8, or however many, so.
That's a good question, though.
One mystery at a time.
All right, question over here on the side.
This is open up to any of you guys on the panel. So I know our main topic is Bigfoot. However, in your experiences with the expeditions that you have done, have you run across any other cryptids, like, you know, Skinwalker, Mothman, Thunderbird, like anything else?
Daryl and I ran across, been years ago now, we were coming back from a camera maintenance trip in the Big Thicket. We pulled off in Sam Houston just to be nosy. And we came across what the media is calling a chupacabra. Now,
Most bizarre looking thing we've ever seen.
Where I grew up, they were called blue dogs. And what we saw was, at least in my opinion, you can refute me if you want, Daryl, but it was clearly a canid that was very sick, ate up with mange. It was moving very slowly, but it was a really weird, alien-looking creature, kind of this bluish-gray, elephant time skin, little patches of hair on it just here and there, and it just kind of staggered almost finally across the road. It got into the brush line just a few feet and just stood there and just stood
I
there.
can hear that table from us, just looking at it.
Yeah, it was really an odd looking thing. So if that counts, we've seen that. But
Well, this guy, I mean, the same night this guy sees Sasquatch for the first time in his life, like what, 3 hours later he sees a mountain lion. So how crazy is that?
Was it a blue moon?
I don't tell people that because no one, they have a hard enough time believing half of it, and then you add that. But that's true. It was everything was moving that night. We just hit the lottery, so to speak, on that night. We saw every animal in the forest that night, I believe.
On the road.
Yeah, on the road.
Yeah.
What was the moon phase?
It was pretty big. I don't know if it was all the way full. I don't recall,
And
but
I'm
it was
not-
big. And
yeah.
it was the visibility was really good, which doesn't always. You know, a lot of times they don't move when the
And that's,
visibility is.
you know, I'm
that
not
good.
saying that
It was
has an
odd.
effect, but it could, I mean, it's
I don't know.
weird.
The mountain lion just ran across the road too, didn't it?
It just kind of swung.
In East
Yeah.
Texas?
Yeah, yeah,
that's
Sam Houston.
that's awesome. I'm doing a lot more of the other cryptid stuff. I do a lot more work on cats and wolf stuff, but you know, some people consider it cryptozoology and some don't. You know, animals that were supposed to be extinct, you know, in the recent history, but like the ivory-billed woodpecker and things like that. So one night I was actually a long time ago, we had heard that there were there had been several cougar sightings in this one spot in East Texas where they weren't supposed to be, and we went out and played some calls out there, and I see this eye shine along this clear cut along one strip of woods, and it disappears. And so I got my dad and my friend to shine a Q-beam over there, and I had a little camera on me. This is like a primitive digital camera and a shotgun just in case. I am enough redneck that if something comes after me, we're shooting. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go home. Hog behind the bushes, you ain't gonna make it. Probably not. So I'm just going out there and I have this gun strapped on, man, I'm running, and I'm going, what the green heck am I doing? I'm stupid. And I get out there and all of a sudden the eyes pop up. And I'm like from here to Daniel. And it was absolutely as close to a red wolf as you could ever have in your life. And it was old. It had grizzled looking fur coat and it ran off real slow with like a limp in the bushes. But I was looking for one animal that wasn't supposed to be there and saw that animal that wasn't supposed to be. It's not fantastic like a thunderbird or something, but that's my best experience.
Yeah.
That's how I met him, is because I witnessed a red wolf in the North Sulphur River.
So do we consider the red wolf a cryptid? I guess it's not really a cryptid, right? It's just a...
I used to call them known cryptids.
Okay, a known
cryptid.
cryptid.
Known cryptids.
So at Area X, we had these audio recorders out, and we did obtain some recordings, very wolf-like, and we even got in contact with, I think there's the Red Wolf Coalition.
Yeah, North Carolina.
Yeah. So we consulted them, and they could not rule out that these howls we recorded, very clear, very distinct, that these howls were not from a red wolf, and this is in southeastern Oklahoma.
Yeah, but you remember the context was like, I'll let you finish. I'll wait.
And we've also, Alton Higgins, wildlife biologist for decades, retired biology professor, he saw several, he thought they were wolves in Area X. He had a clear daytime sighting of two of them running together. He said one of them was black. Now Chester thinks these may be gray wolves in there, but still, whatever they are, there's some sort of wolf that's not supposed to be there. So that, at least to us, was extremely fascinating, because here we are looking for the Sasquatch out here, and we thought it would just be super cool if we could somehow document that there's an unknown wolf in the Ouachita Mountains as well. I mean, that would just be fantastic.
Well, the funny thing, I'll make it very brief, but the context of that was that we had told the person who submitted that, do not tell them where these were recorded. And so he had said, they were like, those are great wolf vocalizations. Where'd you get those? Oh, the Ouachitas.
Never mind.
Oh, well, they can't be then.
Exactly.
Well, why not? Oh, because, they're not there.
Yeah.
Well, what would it take for you to change your mind? Well, we need to hear some evidence. Yeah. So there's this great site in Alaska now, the Alaska Boneyard, where this individual's been pulling out, literally hundreds of thousands of fossils, and there were some fossil cats there that He said he had brought to the attention of people, and they were like, "Oh, it can't be. They didn't live there." He's like, "Well, we're pulling them out of the ground. You know, it's permafrost." Like, "Oh, they didn't live there." And he said, "Well, they sure died here." So, and so there is that kind of paradigm of like, "Oh, great wolf house. Oh, wait, where were they? Oh, well, then it can't be."
Along those lines, when I was writing the Shadowcats book about the Black Panther phenomenon, which are not supposed to exist either. And I came into possession of some hares. A guy contacted me, said he had hit one in Central Texas, Highway 7, somewhere between Marlin and Waco, and he hit one in his car. He got out, and the thing kind of rolled a few times. He didn't come over the top of it. He hit it, it rolled a few times, and it kind of limped off into the woods. And he lived in Dallas, and he drove on home to Dallas. His car was damaged, but it was still running. He got home, and he said the next morning he came out to examine it, and he plucked a bunch of hairs off the grill of the car. And he asked me if I would like them, if I would have them, if I'd like to get them and have them analyzed. Of course, and there's a whole chapter in the book about this circuitous logic that Matt was talking about. And I contacted the biology department of, I believe, every university in the state of Texas. 2 responded. One, well, I guess I shouldn't say.
Say it.
Well,
We won't tell.
yeah, the little devil on my shoulder never sounded like Shelly before. It was, one was from a university in South Texas, and he responded simply to scold me and tell me there was no such thing. And he's the one that used the circuitous logic. He said, "There's no such thing. There's no evidence that these exist." I said, "Well, what would I tell you if I told you I might have evidence?" He said, "I would tell you your evidence is no good because there's no such thing. It can't be real, there's no evidence." Well, here's evidence. Well, your evidence is invalid because there's no such thing. So you just do this round and round. And so we've run up on things like that before.
Tag 7 paper, same thing.
Tag 7 paper, same thing. But the other university, Harvard on the Natchez, ring the bell?
Yeah,
Some people. The head of the biology department was very enthusiastic. Was in Southeast Texas, and when I talked to him, "Oh yeah, we'd love to get a look at that." And he says, "I've seen one myself." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, after one of the hurricanes, I don't remember which one, in Anahuac, Texas, and down in the reserve down there." He said, "Great." He says, I'll talk to my mammal guy." This guy, I can't remember if he's a herb guy or what he was, but "I'll talk to my mammal guy." I said, "Okay, call you back." Week went by, nothing. 2 weeks went by, nothing. Finally, the 3rd week, I called him back. His entire tone was different, and he was suddenly no longer interested, and there's no such thing. Despite the fact that he told me he had seen one himself. So the mammal guy got to him is what happened, probably gave him a hard time. So we run into that kind of thing a lot.
That's so unscientific.
The lab where we sent one of the eDNA samples that we collected in Kentucky that came back as chimpanzee. The geneticist was like shocked. She was excited. She went on and on about, "Listen, there's no way that there was any kind of error in this. We got more than 10,000 hits, and we're showing very clear, specific chimpanzee DNA." And she was like, she was so excited. Called her a week later, and she's like, "Yeah, is there any way that you guys can reshoot me not being excited about it because my boss is upset?"
Oh, wow.
Because she had reacted sincerely, and her boss said, "What were you thinking? Now people are gonna think we're not a real lab." And it's because she really was excited about the findings, as we were, and I was especially excited by her excitement because I knew we'd gotten something really special, and then she just wanted nothing to do with it and did not want to appear on the show, but it was too late for that because we'd already had an agreement and she filmed it, but her boss got to her head and said, kind of you're in big trouble. I think we have time for one last question, Daniel?
Sure, and I'll just make a quick note. When it comes to cryptid research, there's the Bluff Creek Project, which, is based in the area which we see the original Patterson-Gimlin film. And they've set up game camps for well over a decade to try to see what they can come up with. And while they haven't come up with any Bigfoot-related material, they actually did discover a ring-tailed cat and what they call the Humboldt marten, which is a mink. So sometimes inadvertently we do find other creatures while attempting to search for cryptids. So I'm going to hand it off to our other question.
Okay. So we talk a lot about what we think about Bigfoot, and I know this will be speculative, but I wonder if anyone has an opinion of what they see when they look at us. Like, what do they think of us? Like, are they do they have a language? Are they able to pass down history of what they've seen over the last few hundred years with the United States? Like, are we the evil humans
I
who
hope
take their
not.
land and are irresponsible with the planet and they can't get far enough away from us? Or what are we to them? That's what I wonder. Sorry to make it be the last question.
Tasty.
I honestly, this is just being out there a lot with other people sometimes, but I honestly think they recognize words like Bigfoot. Not that they understand our language at all, but it seems if you hear a word and you see a reaction within the humans around you, it's kind of like, oh, those are those people, let's go. I kind of feel that if they're intelligent enough to see that, recognize it. I also know, and I can't remember which mammals it is, but they take their young out to show them what's dangerous and what are predators and what's okay, so I wouldn't see why Sasquatches wouldn't do that as well.
I think they're in the woods listening to us call blasts and make our noises. These guys talk a really bad Bigfoot dialect. And that maybe what she's talking about may very well be true. I don't think there's any way I could ever answer that, but I've always thought they're probably going, there's those guys again, let's give them one call and throw them a nugget,
If we continue to use primates as a reference, primates are the only animals that do not have any instincts. All behavior is learned. So everything that, infants are highly altricial, they depend on their parents for their survival and for learning every single thing. And we humans and then primates are the only ones that learn, it's all passed down, so.
Yeah, I just think they know we're bad news. That's pretty broad, but I think that's part of the game camera issue. I think a lot of times they see us putting them out. They don't know what it is, but they know it has something to do with us, and it's to be avoided because of that. We've seen that with coyotes. Alpha male coyotes. They avoid game cameras. And so I think there's something in them being intelligent, that there's a curiosity there to some degree. Maybe they can't help themselves, but especially after dark, maybe sneak up and try to get a little peek. Maybe that's the adolescents who are full of piss and vinegar, think they're bulletproof. And I think it's, you talk about sharks, it's usually the 10-footers that bite you, not the big, 20-foot great whites who's learned not to do that, the adventurous ones, the ones that are still testing things and their abilities and things, so to speak. I think I'll wonder sometimes if that's not what we run into, and mom and dad are over the mountain rolling their eyes because Junior's out clowning around again, But I think they just know it's best for them not to be seen by us. And like I said, I know that's broad, but I think that kind of sums it up.
I think they're bolder in number. When they're in groups or small, that's what I experienced. Is they were very brazen and wanted us to know, but I felt like it's because there's more than one. It's kind of like when you were young and you were gonna get in a bar fight and some dude you don't even know, like, I got you, man. And you're like, yeah, you know, I think they feel that presence of others that are protective, and they get real bold and get closer. And I don't know, that's just what I experienced.
Used to get in.
I can't speak for
Yeah,
how
all
they see
the
all of
time.
humanity.
Never.
I don't know how they see all of humanity, but I'm sure they see me as a bit of a clingy stalker, because I've been trying for 20 years. They don't return my calls very often. You know, they're very emotionally distant. I'm way more into them than they are into me. And so I think they're kind of jerks.
We in the NAWAC, we have had conversations about them actually recognizing certain individuals among us. Those of us who have spent the most time on the ground, in the field, and who have had a number of visual and close encounters. Come on, I mean, dogs, cats, all sorts of lesser mammals recognize individual people. It's very reasonable to posit that these things certainly do, particularly when we've been going in there for years, year in, year out, and the same human mugs go in there, and you know, yeah, I think they absolutely recognize that humans are to be avoided. I mean, they go to great lengths. I think the times we see them is when we've caught them in a mistake. I think every time, just about every time we see them, it's because they made some sort of mistake. We just, you know, just happen to be fortunate enough to see them at that time. Yep. Okay.
I got one last thing, and it's something that I don't think I've ever told it, but my friend Kurt Brandenburg likes to tell it. So I don't do calls, I don't do wood knocks. I want to be me, I want to be just normal, I want to be predictable. I do the same thing over and over so that things feel comfortable with me. And I've proven that that works with the birds, the chipmunks, all of them. They come and visit, and I'm Snow White for a day. And so, but it's great because I'm actually, you know, collecting that data of whatever it is, whether it's Sasquatch or not. I'm learning something, right? But so I don't, I know, right? So I don't do Sasquatch calls, but what I do occasionally is my own Norwegian goat call. It's very unique to me. Yeah.
We got
It's
it here.
just,
Yes.
oh, you really want me to?
We got it here.
Okay,
come on.
Okay, I'll do it real slow. But this is unique to me because I want to get the coyotes going. That's once, and my encounter involved coyotes. That's another story. But it's this simple, like, yee-hoo, yee-hoo, simple. Doing it for years in the same spot where I had my encounter. One day, a couple of years ago, I'm there with a couple of the guys, recorders everywhere. The sun is coming down, and all of a sudden you hear, yee-hoo, yee-hoo, across the road.
Yeah.
And Kurt turns to me and he said, Shelly, did you do that? I said, well, no, I'm right here. Do you have a recorder on? I have 3 on, Kurt. He jumps in his car, he races up and down the roads to see if anybody's in the area. Nobody's in the area, and he comes back, he said, they know you. They know you. Your tent's the same, truck north is the same. They're saying hello or whatever, but they're doing your call, they're mimicking you. That was the creepiest day of my life. I mean, seriously, I'm out there alone for years, and they call back. So, I don't know if that means anything or if that's true, but it's kind of interesting. That's what he...
And with that, we're going to draw to a close. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and let's get a big hand for all of our speakers.
Great questions.
All our speakers right here.